What happens when a beloved Hollywood legend sits down for what should be a friendly morning chat, only to find himself under siege? It took just 36 seconds for a seemingly ordinary interview to explode into one of the most chaotic moments in daytime television history, exposing the cracks beneath the polished world of live TV. The Loose Women's studio buzzed with its usual Tuesday morning energy. Cameras rolled, lights blazed, and the familiar pink and purple set gleamed under the hot studio glow. At the famous panel table sat 4 hosts, each in her element, ready for another day of lively debate and celebrity gossip. Denise Welch adjusted her microphone, her jaw already tight, the kind of tension that regular viewers recognized as a warning sign. To her left, Ruth Langsford, ever the consummate professional, shuffled through her cue cards with practiced calm. Colleen Nolan smiled warmly at the audience, masking the unease she could already sense building in the air. At the far end, Janet Street Porter tapped her red nails against the desk, her sharp eyes flicking across the studio like a hawk's, waiting for drama. Their guest that day was none other than Sean Bean, the rugged, quietly magnetic actor who'd spent decades embodying tragic heroes on screen. From Boromir in The Lord of the Rings to Ned Stark in Game of Thrones, Bean had become a legend for dying with dignity. But this time, he had no idea he was walking straight into a different kind of execution. He settled comfortably into his chair, wearing a black blazer over a gray shirt, projecting easy confidence. His voice, gravelly, grounded, filled the studio as he chatted about his new crime drama, another story of loss and redemption. Colleen leaned forward, smiling. "Sean, you've died more times on screen than most actors ever live. Do you ever get tired of it?" Bean chuckled, eyes crinkling. "I suppose it's my thing now, isn't it? There's something freeing about playing men who meet their fate head-on." The audience laughed, charmed by his humility. Even Janet smirked approvingly. But Denise sat silent. Her fingers drummed against the desk, faster and faster. Something in her eyes had shifted, an agitation no one quite knew how to name. The other hosts exchanged wary glances. Ruth, ever the guide, steered the conversation back to safer ground. "You've got a busy year ahead, Sean. How do you balance such demanding roles with family life?" It was a soft question, meant to keep things light. Bean smiled gently. "Family's everything to me," he said. "After all these years, you realize it's the relationships off camera that really matter." Applause rippled through the studio. Ruth nodded. Colleen smiled. Even Janet looked impressed. But Denise's expression hardened. Her lips pressed into a thin, pale line. "That's all very touching," she cut in suddenly, her voice slicing through the warmth like a knife. The audience fell silent. "But let's talk about what really matters here," Bean blinked, thrown off by the tone. "I'm sorry?" "Don't play innocent with me," Denise snapped, leaning forward. "You come on here talking about family and values. But what about your responsibilities to your fans? What about the promises you've made to them?" The tension was instant. Ruth's eyes widened. "Denise, maybe we should—" "No, Ruth," Denise interrupted, her voice rising. "I'm sick of celebrities sitting in that chair, acting all humble, when they've turned their backs on the people who made them famous in the first place." A hush fell over the studio. The crew froze. Camera operators exchanged nervous looks. Sean Bean didn't move. His stillness was almost unnerving, calm, controlled, every word measured. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," he said softly. "If I've upset you somehow, perhaps you could explain." His composure only seemed to ignite her further. "You actors think you can just show up, smile for the cameras, and expect everyone to adore you. Denise snapped, her voice cracking slightly. "But some of us see right through it." Colleen turned toward her, eyes wide. "Denise, this is completely inappropriate. Sean's our guest. He deserves to be treated with respect." But the damage was done. The studio was dead silent, the air thick with disbelief. And for the first time that morning, Sean Bean didn't look like a man being interviewed. He looked like a man under fire. Respect? Denise laughed bitterly, the sound cutting through the tense silence like glass breaking. What about respecting the audience? What about respecting the people who tune in every day, expecting real conversation? Not some rehearsed publicity script. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Sean Bean's jaw tightened, but his tone stayed calm even. "I came here today in good faith," he said, measured but firm. "I'm speaking honestly about my work, my life. I don't know what's triggered this reaction, but I assure you, everything I've said is genuine." Janet Street Porter, ever the provocateur, tried to lighten the mood. "Well," she quipped, "this is certainly more exciting than our usual Tuesday morning chat about the weather." But Denise wasn't laughing. She turned on Janet with sharp fury. "This isn't a joke, Janet. This is about integrity, about holding these people accountable for their actions." Ruth Langsford's composure finally cracked. "What actions?" she demanded, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Sean has done nothing but answer politely and professionally. This behavior is absolutely unacceptable." The audience sat frozen, unsure whether they were witnessing a planned bit or a full-blown meltdown. But the look in Denise's eyes, the raw, burning anger, made it clear. This was real. Sean Bean's patience began to fray. His Yorkshire accent grew sharper, his voice lower, harder. "Now look here," he said, standing his ground. "I don't know what your problem is, but I won't sit here and be insulted for no reason. I came here as a favor to this show, not to be ambushed by someone with an axe to grind." "A favor?" Denise shot back, her voice rising to a shriek that made the microphone squeal. "You think you're doing us a favor just by showing up? The arrogance is staggering." Colleen Nolan shot up from her seat, her chair scraping across the floor. "That's enough, Denise. This has gone way too far. Sean..." She turned to him, voice breaking with apology. "I'm so sorry. This is not how we treat our guests." But Denise wasn't finished. She stood too, pointing an accusatory finger across the table. "Don't you dare apologize for me, Colleen. Someone has to say it. These celebrities think they can waltz in here and expect us to bow and scrape." That was the breaking point. Sean Bean rose from his chair slowly, deliberately. The studio lights caught the steel in his eyes. When he spoke, his voice was calm but commanding, echoing through the silent room. "Right," he said. "That's quite enough of this nonsense. I don't know what's got into you, love, but I won't be spoken to like this by anyone. I've been nothing but polite since I walked in." Chaos erupted. Producers shouted through headsets. Audience members whispered in disbelief. And then, the moment that would dominate headlines for weeks. Denise leaned forward, her face twisted with fury. "Polite and professional?" she spat. "You call it professional to show up here unprepared, spouting the same recycled answers you've been giving for 20 years? You think we're idiots who can't see through your act?" Bean's eyes hardened. The warmth was gone, replaced by that quiet intensity that had defined so many of his roles. When he spoke, the air seemed to still. "What act?" he said. "I came here to talk about my work, my family, the things that matter to me. If that's not good enough for you, maybe you should find yourself a different job." The entire studio gasped. Ruth's mouth fell open. Colleen covered her face, shaking her head. Even Janet sat speechless, her trademark sarcasm evaporating. Denise gave a sharp, humorless laugh. "A different job? Don't patronize me, Sean. I've been doing this longer than you've been pretending to be an actor. I've interviewed real stars, people with talent, not washed-up has-beens living off old glory." The words hung in the air like poison. Sean Bean's expression darkened. For a long, terrible moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, it was a whisper, but one laced with quiet menace. "Washed up?" His voice was low, deadly calm. "I've forgotten more about acting than you'll ever know about presenting. And at least when I do my job, I don't tear people down for cheap entertainment." Ruth's composure shattered completely. "Denise, stop this right now," she snapped. "You're embarrassing yourself. And this show." The studio was dead silent. The audience watched as Denise froze, her chest heaving, eyes glassy with anger. Sean Bean took one last look around the table, then at the cameras, still rolling. His voice softened, but only slightly. "I think we're done here." He removed his microphone, set it gently on the desk, and walked off set without another word. "Sean has done nothing to deserve this treatment," Ruth said sharply, her composure barely holding. But Denise whirled on her, eyes blazing. "Don't you dare tell me how to do my job, Ruth. Just because you're happy tossing out your safe little questions doesn't mean the rest of us have to play along with this charade." "Charade?" Ruth's professional mask finally cracked. "The only charade here is you pretending to be a journalist while behaving like a playground bully." A ripple of discomfort spread through the audience. Murmurs filled the air. A few people stood, quietly edging toward the exits. The atmosphere in the studio had turned poisonous. Colleen Nolan, desperate to pull things back, raised her voice over the rising tension. "Please, everyone, let's just take a moment to calm down. We're on live television. Think about what message we're sending to our viewers." "The message," Denise spat, leaning forward, "is honesty. The message is that some of us won't be bought and paid for by celebrity handlers and PR machines." That was the breaking point. Sean Bean's patience, tested past its limit, finally snapped. His Yorkshire accent sharpened, his voice now booming with righteous anger. "Bought and paid for?" he barked. "You absolute lunatic. Nobody's bought me anything. I agreed to come on this show because I thought it might be a pleasant morning. More fool me for thinking I'd be treated with basic human decency." "Human decency?" Denise repeated, her voice climbing to a shrill pitch. "What about the decency you owe your fans when you phone in your performances? What about the audiences who pay good money to watch you sleepwalk through another role?" "My performances?" Bean's voice rose to meet hers, the civility gone. "I've spent 40 years perfecting my craft, working with the best directors and actors in the world. I don't need career advice from someone whose biggest achievement is stirring up outrage on daytime TV." Janet Street Porter, pale and uncharacteristically quiet, managed to whisper, "Perhaps we should go to a commercial break." "No commercial break," Denise snapped, eyes locked on Bean. "Let's finish this now. Let's talk about how you've been coasting on your Lord of the Rings fame for decades." "Coasting?" Bean's face flushed red, his jaw tightening. "I've made over 60 films and television shows. I've worked non-stop for 40 years, taking roles most wouldn't dare touch. If that's coasting, then what do you call sitting behind a desk and tearing people down for a living?" The air was electric, suffocating. The tension had long since crossed the line from entertainment to something raw, dangerous. Ruth looked helplessly toward the control booth, silently begging the producers to cut the feed. But the cameras kept rolling. Every second was live. "I call it holding people accountable," Denise shot back. "I call it asking the hard questions your Hollywood friends are too scared to answer." "Hard questions?" Bean laughed coldly. "You haven't asked me a single question about my work, my process. Nothing remotely professional. You've spent this entire time hurling insults, like a spoiled child having a tantrum." Colleen was crying now, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Denise, please. You're better than this. This isn't who you are." Denise straightened her back, her voice steady but trembling with rage. "This is exactly who I am. I'm not afraid of entitled celebrities who think their fame makes them untouchable." Bean shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. Entitled? I've sat here taking your abuse for 10 minutes without saying a word. I've answered every question you've asked. Between your insults, if anyone's acting entitled, it's the woman who thinks she has the right to publicly humiliate people for no reason. No reason? Denise's voice cracked, a strange mix of fury and pain breaking through. The reason is that I'm sick of fake people giving fake answers to fake questions. I'm sick of this whole rotten system. That was it for Ruth. She rose from her seat, trembling but composed, and faced the camera head-on. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said with quiet dignity, "I want to apologize to our viewers and to our guest for what you're witnessing. This is not the standard of professionalism we uphold on this show. Don't apologize for me," Denise screamed, spinning toward Ruth. "I'm the only one here with the courage to tell the truth." "The truth?" Bean's voice cut through the noise like a blade. His tone was low, cold, almost pitying. "The truth is that you've lost your mind. You're having a breakdown on national television and taking it out on me." The words hit her like a physical blow. For the first time, Denise's anger faltered. Her face twitched, eyes glistening as if she'd been struck. The mask slipped, just for a moment, revealing the exhaustion, the fragility beneath the rage. Then she straightened. Her voice, when it came, was eerily calm. "Breakdown?" she whispered. "I'll show you a breakdown." The studio went completely still. No one breathed. No one moved. The cameras rolled on, capturing every second of what came next. Everyone in the studio sensed it. The moment teetered on the edge of something irreversible. Whatever was about to happen would cross a line that could never be uncrossed. Bean stood motionless, his hands clenched at his sides, the calm before the inevitable storm. When Denise spoke again, her voice was quiet, but laced with venom so potent that everyone could feel it. "Get out." The two words landed like a death sentence. Bean's eyebrows rose in disbelief, while the other presenters exchanged horrified glances. "I beg your pardon?" he said slowly. "You heard me," Denise snapped. "Get out of my studio. Get out of my show. Get out of my sight," Ruth gasped. "Denise, you can't do that. You don't have the authority." "I have every authority," Denise cut in sharply. "This is my show, and I want him gone. Now." Chaos erupted. Voices overlapped, crew members rushed toward the stage, and the tension reached its breaking point. Bean just stood there, studying her. His face shifted, shock, anger, then something softer, almost pity. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm but carried the weight of finality. "Your studio?" he said. His gaze swept across the room. Ruth's stricken face, Colleen's tears, Janet's stunned silence. "Your show? Last I checked, this was supposed to be a team effort." "Don't lecture me about teamwork," Denise hissed. Though the fight was draining from her voice, the magnitude of what she'd done was beginning to hit her. "Just leave." But Bean wasn't finished. He stepped closer, his quiet authority commanding the room. "You know what the real tragedy is here?" he said evenly. "You had a chance to have a genuine conversation with someone who spent his life telling stories. Instead, you chose to create a spectacle." Ruth found her voice trembling. "Sean, please don't judge all of us by this. This isn't who we are." Bean nodded at her, his expression softening. "I know. You've been nothing but professional, and I appreciate that." He turned to Colleen, who was still dabbing her eyes. "You too, love." "This isn't your fault." Then to Janet, "Just a small, respectful nod. And you tried to lighten the mood when things got ugly. That counts for something." His kindness toward them only magnified Denise's isolation. She stood alone, trembling in her own fury, while he embodied the composure she'd lost. "How touching!" Denise sneered, though her voice had no venom left. "A little farewell speech for your fans." Bean met her eyes, his expression weary but compassionate. "You know what? I actually feel sorry for you. Whatever's eating at you, whatever's making you lash out like this, I hope you find a way to face it without hurting people who don't deserve it." The words struck deeper than any insult could have. Denise's posture crumpled. Her shoulders sank. For the first time since the confrontation began, she looked unsure. "I don't need your pity," she muttered. "It's not pity," Bean said quietly. "It's concern for someone clearly struggling, but I won't stand here and be your punching bag while you figure it out." He began removing his microphone, his movements deliberate, graceful. The simple act carried more weight than all the shouting that came before. Ruth tried one last time. "Sean, please, if we could just—" "No, Ruth," he said gently. "She's made her feelings clear, and I'm not going to subject myself, or you, to any more of this. Some battles aren't worth fighting." He unclipped his mic pack. The studio fell utterly silent. The audience sat frozen, watching a masterclass in dignity under pressure. Even the camera operators hesitated to move, afraid to break the moment. Colleen wiped her eyes. "Sean, I just want you to know, not all of us feel this way. You've been nothing but gracious." He smiled, his first genuine smile in minutes. "Thank you. That means more than you know." He set the microphone gently on the chair and straightened his jacket. The simple gesture seemed to restore order to the chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, turning to the audience, "I'm sorry your morning entertainment turned into something unpleasant. That was never my intention." A slow ripple of applause began, hesitant at first, then swelling into a standing ovation. It was not for the spectacle, but for his composure. Denise watched horrified as realization dawned. The audience wasn't applauding her moral stand. They were applauding the man she had humiliated. "This is ridiculous," she said weakly, but no one heard her anymore. Bean walked calmly toward the exit, nodding to crew members as he passed. At the door, he paused. "Ruth, Colleen, Janet," he said softly. "It was a pleasure even under these circumstances. I hope the rest of your show goes more smoothly." He didn't look at Denise again. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ruth stared at the door, then back to the camera still rolling. "Well," she murmured, "that was certainly unexpected." Colleen looked dazed. "I can't believe what just happened. In 30 years of television, I've never seen anything like it." Even Janet had no words. She opened her mouth, closed it again, and just shook her head. Denise sank into her chair, deflated. The righteous anger that had fueled her outburst was gone, replaced by the crushing weight of realization. She had just destroyed her own credibility on live television. Ruth, ever the professional, tried to recover. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll have today's showbiz news." But as the cameras cut and the lights dimmed, everyone knew there would be no returning to normal. The crew whispered. The presenters sat in silence, and Denise stared at the empty chair, at the microphone Bean had left behind, a silent monument to everything she'd just lost. In less than 15 minutes, a routine interview had become one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. And somewhere outside the studio, Sean Bean walked away with his dignity intact, leaving behind a cautionary tale about what happens when personal demons are given a live microphone. The storm had passed, but the fallout was only beginning.